Hello and welcome to Confidently Wrong, a show by regular dudes talking with confidence about content we have no right to speak about with any kind of authority, but do it anyway. I'm Wesley Nakamura, and as always I'm joined by award-winning director Brian Redondo and Savon Jones, aka Captain Bonnie. This is episode 177, and we give our first impressions of Invincible Season 3. I'm confident that it's going to be the best show you've ever listened to, and well, hey, if it's not, you can always ask us for a refund.
Incredible!
Hello, gentlemen. Welcome back. It's Confidently Wrong. We're here in the houses, not the house, but the houses with Brian, Savon, and Wesley. How's it going, Brian?
What up?
How's it going, Savon?
Hey.
And good morning to everybody, especially Lakers fans.
No, y'all. Wes don't like the trade. Wes don't think so.
Wes
think Luka
that's a morning with a U for Wesley over here.
Yeah.
Wes
is in shape.
Wes
Wes did not like the trade, y'all.
I'm sad that we got rid of AD. AD is a monster, filling every role on the team: defensive stopper, offensive hub, rebounder, just carrying everybody's fucking water on the team.
Offensive
They
hub.
seem to be doing all right without him.
Offensive hub seems like a bit of an.
I mean, the guy's
Dial
getting
back.
like 30 and 10 every night. So it's not nothing. He's not doing nothing out there.
He's no cat.
he isn't
no
as good a
Julius
scorer as
Randle.
Cat. I'll give him that. But I think it seems like he's more consistent than Cat. It feels like, and way better on defense. Jesus Christ, his defense is amazing. I could not speak more highly of someone on defense than
Nah, man, that stuff wild.
And so, yeah, I was definitely sad when someone told me the news. They were like, what do you think? And I was like, this is really good for the Mavs. Like, they're going to balance out their team to have like a defensive identity and an offensive identity with Kyrie in there. And it's not like AD takes your offense off the table, right? Like, still getting you 25 points to 30 points a game. So I was sad because he's leaving us.
So you know how Mav fans had a funeral outside of their arena?
They did.
Wes did the exact same thing.
His backyard had a little
Lakers.
service.
Mini size.
Crypto.com or whatever that place is called now. And he was there by himself.
The crypt. He's at the crypt. That's what they call it, the crypt.
The crypt. But then as all the analysis has come out about how the Lakers won this trade and Dallas lost it and were idiots for doing the trade, I can see how certainly it's viewed that way. I think I probably also just didn't watch enough Luka. Like I don't hold Luka at that level. As you know, obviously he's a superstar player and an amazing player, especially for his age. But I don't hold him in that like top tier. But part of that is, I think, you know, my misperception of like him in Dallas basketball, and you know, he hasn't won it yet.
I love that we've been talking about this for basically an hour at this point before we even started recording. And now Wes is using this moment to lay down his final statement on it.
Final statement.
A bad one at that.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, we get this all this context.
You know, we're
and
just
knowledge.
like tired of talking about this already. Wes is just trying to get on record here.
And I obviously I see the potential there. Hopefully it works out for the Lakers.
I'm glad you're so open-minded. I see the potential.
Yeah, I see the potential.
That boy said it like,
well, I was telling the guys,
all the analysis now I see. Nobody did no analysis. Everybody saw that in the middle of the night. I was like, what the fuck is this?
I mean, I think I also see how it could go wrong. And, you know, definitely all those slandering comments that were leaking out of Dallas about how Luka's out of shape and not committed to his fitness and stuff, like that makes that, you know, that nags in the back of your mind a little bit, you know, like, oh, is he just going to be hurt every year? Like James Harden just disappearing in the playoffs, you know, like, is that what we're going for here? I don't know. We'll see. But we're going to get into it. So, and Savon is trying to convince me that this like potential that Luka has, you know, like you're willing to trade it all for Luka, like no question asked. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, maybe, but if championships are your thing, like
for Brian's sake and this podcast sake, I'm not engaging.
All right. You want to get, you know, I don't know. You want to get the
Brian,
guy?
help me.
So
we already did this.
all right, here we go. We're going Invincible season 3. They released 3 episodes right off the bat, and all 3 of us were like, "But why? Why did you do that? Why? How are we supposed to watch all these episodes in just 2 days before we record?" So we did our best. Brian watched 1 episode. I watched 2 episodes, and Savon watched all 3 episodes. So that's what we're bringing to the table. Seems about right.
We got you covered.
Yeah, we got you covered. If you want a really good take on season 1 or episode 1, Brian's got you. We're back here with a new season. I don't know. The release is 3 episodes right off the bat, so that came out this week, and then we're gonna get 1 episode a week for the next 8 weeks or so. Before we hop in, remind us where we're at, because honestly, I kind of forgot. Savon, what happened in season 2, and where are we in this whole saga of Mark and Omni-Man and all that?
I'm not really sure what's happening, Wes. I think I forgot. No. No, so last we saw in our last season of Invincible, we have seen that things are starting to get a little bit amped up. We know that Mark went off planet, was reunited with his father, learned a little bit about how he supposedly has a change of heart. We know that the Viltrumites are very much not only on their way to Earth, but they've already sent people to check on Mark's progress. He's been given his father's mission now of preparing Earth for takeover, and we know there's some ominous stuff hanging in the background. So we've gotten more Viltrumites. We know that folks like Al and the Alien are in the Viltrumite prison trying to work with the coalition to figure out, hey, we got to do something about this Viltrumites and the danger that they pose, right? And potentially an upcoming war. And then on Earth, we still have the Guardians of the Globe filling themselves out with their roster. We have the relationship stuff with Mark, Eve, Mark's family, his new son, Oliver, his mother. So right now, we've kind of had everybody have their own individual arcs, but the big thing right now is that Mark's getting stronger. More Viltrumites are in play in multiple senses of the word, and some of the bigger picture plot and conflict is starting to open up, along with some obvious side things that are going to be important, but we just don't know it yet.
All right, so walking into the season, I think this was kind of a little bit of a quieter run up here. We didn't see a ton of ads or promotion for this one. Did you have any expectations for the season? What are you hoping for? What do you want to see? What's your hype level, I guess? Brian, where are you at on this one?
I mean, I'm just excited for the fact that this season is not going to have any interruptions like last season, which I thought was a huge momentum killer for that season. Like season 2 coming off of an excellent season 1 and then a huge 2-year gap. And then to have a season 2 with one of my favorite characters, who's Angstrom Levy, just be interrupted mid-season by a break, I felt really kind of dialed down how good of an Invincible season that could have been. And it was kind of like shooting themselves in the foot. They had to build this thing back up, and it quite didn't hit the mark for me. Given how much hype I have for this IP. And so season 3, what I'm really looking forward to is just getting all of Invincible, getting through it, no breaks, and just going off to the races. That's what I want to see. And, having read the comics, I know there's lots of good stuff in store for all the kiddies out there. So I'm hyped for that part, but I still have my misgivings. I always have my misgivings.
Mm-hmm.
Savon, what's your hype level?
It's always been overall hype. I've been on the record before of as someone who's read a lot of comics in my life, Invincible is probably the best overall comic I've read. I feel pretty, I read the comic a couple years ago and I still feel very affirmed in that statement. So the hype was always here. The storylines, for me, keeping up with casting for characters who we're going to be getting that I'm very, very excited for. So the hype was always there. Again, reiterating Brian's point, even for someone who knows what's going to happen, that mid-season break after such a long gap between the first 2 seasons was a real momentum killer. And now that we're not having that just from a convenience experience, I'm excited for that. But the big thing I'm hyped for is that Invincible has had a very good track record of changing things from the source material that are almost always for the betterment by a long shot, in terms of reestablishing how characters handle certain things, just the writer himself pretty much just said, hey, certain scenes, I don't like how I wrote that or how it aged. we're going to change that so that it fits better into this new retelling of the story. And
do you have an example of that off the top of your head? I'm putting you on the spot, so if you don't,
yeah, best example is in the comics, Omni-Man killing the Guardians doesn't happen until a decent bit into the initial bit of the show. You see the Guardians and you see a lot more of just them as a group existing before their death, Omni-Man, and then he kills them, and he kills them all off screen very easily. The show had them die the first episode, which in itself is like a major tonal pacing shift. And they made the fight very extended and long and drawn out to show that they could have beaten him had he not gotten the total jump on him, which I thought was just a better way of characterizing their actual strengths. You know, in the comic, they just die off screen and it's like, oh, Omni-Man had zero effort wiping them off the map. In the show, it made them look a little bit tougher, show that they could have won, show the brutality, and they didn't slow burn it until being a surprise later. Huge deal. Keep in mind, Invincible, that was probably the biggest gripper of people when they first saw Invincible. Cool, lighthearted, colorful, light animated show. And then first episode, your Justice League analog gets brutally murdered in a gruesome, uncomfortably well done fight. Comics did none of that, right? No fight, way later. Huge change that, in my opinion, everybody who saw Invincible was like, oh shit, I need to watch this, because everyone's like, oh, this looks kind of generic. I've seen this before. And then you realize, no, you have not seen this before. Amazing way to grip in a new audience. And I think that's part of why this show, that was probably one of the best opening grip the audience for a show I've seen in quite some time, where everyone was talking about it. But yeah, another is like Debbie. In the comic, Debbie slips more into alcoholism, and she's a little bit more resentful towards Mark in a very unfair way. Like, she blames him for some of what happened in a way that's like, who wrote this shit? And they completely flipped that. Mark being way angrier at his dad when he goes to the Thraxan planet. In the comic, he's like, Dad, I missed you. In the show, he's like, yo, F you, bro. Like, it's, you know, all very, and even in this new season, which we'll talk about, there were some changes of pacing that I'm like, this was a very, very good pacing change.
Right on. Good examples of that. I wasn't very hyped on this one. I forgot that it was coming out even. So obviously it hasn't been super on my radar. But I did really like how they finished the second season. I thought the second half of the second season was kind of not elevated, but it certainly took it up a notch and made me invested in the characters and seeing where it goes. Having like Debbie have to, you know, confront the difficulty of, am I raising Omni-Man's baby? Like, this not even my baby at all, you know, and the way that she has to, like,
can you relate, Wes?
Cannot relate, but how do you?
You a teacher, you kind of could relate.
How do you somehow forgive what happened enough to like do what you think is morally right? You know, that's a tough call, you know, but her mother instinct kicks in, I guess.
Shout out to Debbie, the real MVP.
Very, very MVP. So there's 3 episodes. We're going to try and do like minimal spoilers here. I mean, I think episode 1, there isn't really anything that's like a super spoiler anyway. So it's okay if we talk about
We're doing episode 2 spoilers straight up.
Yeah. So maybe go watch those first if you haven't seen them yet.
Minimal spoilers, lots of spoilers coming.
No, I'm saying for episode 3, we're not gonna do spoilers. I'll let you live because I want Wes to experience it. But I'm doing episode 1 and 2 spoilers. I don't know. We talking about the show. If you're listening, go watch it.
What moment stood out to you in the opening of this season 3? Savon, start us off.
Oh, one of y'all go. I just finished running my mouth about the whole background thing. One of y'all take that one.
All right, Brian, you got one?
I don't really have one. Kind of like what you said, like episode 1 maybe doesn't really pop off just yet, but of course it's a reintroduction to the world of Invincible, which always feels great. So like one of the big reveals is that Multi-Kate not dead, or Duplicate. Sorry, Multi-Paul. And they, this brother sister pair, and I definitely loved in the comics. Just thinking about them, Multi-Paul comes for revenge for his sister, almost kills Rex.
Rex ain't do nothing, man. Free Rex. They doing my son dirty. They beating the fuck out this dude.
And he's like trying to better himself. Like, he's turning into a reasonable character.
He also spends a lot of time fighting naked at the end of the episode, which is pretty great. He's like, I don't care.
Yeah, he's like, my dick is out. It's fine.
We're alive. Yeah, he's just happy to be alive. Like,
I ain't mad at him.
What a great sensation that must be. He's liberated now. He's liberated. But yeah, so we had in episode 1 we also get this like this growing dynamic, right? That there are dangers, right, that have been unaccounted for. That Invincible was caught off guard for, and one of those dangers to him is that Cecil has some contingency plans that he was very unaware of, namely seeing the Reanimen from that Invincible only knows from season 1, right? Seeing them come to their aid, and also seeing Nightwing,
Darkwing.
Oh, Darkwing. Excuse me, Darkwing. I really get confused with Nightwing and Darkwing here. So like, Darkwing makes me think of Darkwing Duck.
It does.
And
Me too.
Nightwing,
You're like, that can't be the name.
Yeah. Like, he's not getting dangerous.
Dangerous.
What?
Boy, that was my shit.
And so if you all recall, Darkwing and Invincible had a real bad altercation back in season 2, because Darkwing was doing some dark shit. He was killing the people, the villains that he was after. And so like, for Invincible to see all of these come back into the fray, be saved by Reanimen and by Darkwing, kind of is starting to set alarms off for Invincible, and his moral compass kind of takes over. Like, seeing all of that start coming to the head, I think will be a really interesting thing to track this season.
And it was cool. I don't know. I couldn't remember seeing Seismic before. It sounded like we had probably been introduced to him already, but seeing him just like call these creatures from the deep that are like, just unbelievably strong and like able to like take out all of these.
You don't remember Dark Seismic?
No, all of these heroes all at once.
No.
Yeah, I mean, but that's just my memory. It's not because he wasn't good or anything. I don't know, but they clearly alluded to him like having an upgrade, and he's just controlling everything and being able to talk to them. And what a ridiculous, like, hilarious, situation to make a situation really terrible for all of our heroes. And they're just trapped in these like goo pods that are indestructible. Like, even Immortal can't like break through it at all. But somehow the Reanimen can. The Reanimen are just like,
doesn't make sense now that I think about it.
They just opened it, no problem. Maybe they have special powers.
Unlockable from the outside.
Yeah, maybe, or special like electrical pulses that like get through the molecules or something. It doesn't matter. That was pretty great. And they were like in like a lower Earth situation, like where the cavern was like open above them somehow, or like I don't know. The setting didn't make any sense at all. It was just lava, and that's all you had to know. And there were these like centipede creatures that were giant and impossible to kill. So that, I think that definitely stood out to me in the first episode. And in the second episode, I think it's a little bit more. It's not quiet, but it's like brutal and quiet, like sort of like off right between each other. So there's in episode 1 is when Mark tells Eve we should try dating, and she's like, what the fuck? Wait, you're trying to date me only because you got guilted by somebody else who isn't me, who looks like me, into doing this? And she was like, fuck you a little bit. And he was like, ooh, that didn't come out right. So that was pretty funny, how he's just terrible at that. So I don't know. There's lots, I think, that like stood out already. Just the brutality is out in the open again. I mean, Mark really goes in on the Reanimen and just like tears them to pieces every single time he sees. There's like Pavlov's dog. Just as soon as he sees one, he goes nuts and just shreds them. And then in episode 2, this is the spoiler, I guess, is when we get to see Cecil uses another contingency plan against Mark. That feels like a pretty big personal violation. And Mark does not take kindly to this. So that's how it went. I don't know. What do you think, Sav? Was that's I mean, we'll get into the who's who of it and where we stand on it, but I mean, implanting a device into the middle of Mark's head is it's pretty extreme.
Are we jumping into that question now? I had that
Nah,
a little
not
later.
yet. Just that was stood out as like, oh man, this is a moment. Like, oh, he just like Batman with his kryptonite.
Maybe Mark needs to chill the F out. Just like
maybe he do.
Mark be so eager to crash out, and he unfortunately is strong enough to crash out and not have. Lots of us want to crash out but aren't strong enough to just do it at whim. And Mark is strong enough to crash out at whim, and it's like, hey, Bim,
you're a weapon of mass destruction.
You can't do that, dog. Like, you think I don't want to go to the Pentagon and start flipping shit over? It's like, I can't. Like, literally, I can't. I physically can't.
You can physically flip the entire Pentagon over.
Yeah, so I'm like, B, you can't just go over there raising your voice, talking reckless. Like, what?
Is the device the same as that happened in the comics?
Yeah,
okay.
Pretty much the same
so,
thing.
Brian, you've seen it. So for those of you who haven't seen it yet and don't care about spoilers, Cecil had some kind of chip implanted into Mark's head, and it releases some kind of sonic frequency that like really fucks with him and like disables him basically, and it's just like super painful. And so when Mark is getting a little heated, let's say, angry at Cecil for employing former villains as helpers, Cecil eventually decides to use the device on him and disables him, and Mark gets pretty pissed, and we'll talk about that. But that was pretty interesting to Cecil go there. Like, it felt like pretty quickly he went and just like was like, okay, I'm throwing reanimate at you to take you down and buy some time, and then that didn't work. Great, now I'm gonna use this invincible killer on you. So sorry. It's not a killer. Disabler. It was a disabler.
I think they could have killed him, but...
You think so?
I think so.
Yeah. All right. So I think those are the moments that stood out for sure, and that's going to set up, most of the season. Is Mark is he gonna try and save the world, or is he gonna do his own thing and not work with Cecil? All right. Who are we a fan or not a fan of so far in this season? Are we into the Eve and Mark thing? I'm undecided. Brian, where are you at?
I mean, I love Eve and Mark.
Yeah.
But I know too much.
Oh, okay.
I know too much.
Yeah, we know too much.
One of the key changes that they made for the show was that Eve's costume, her superhero costume, no longer has a bikini bottom. They're more like shorts. Anyway, one of the key character design changes. Maybe me pointing that out says too much about me. One of the things that I'm really
it makes
enjoying...
me think that's not actually key at all. It's just a disappointment on your side.
Hey, don't overanalyze this. One of the things I'm really enjoying this season so far, mind you, I've only seen episode 1, is Oliver's character, right? Like he's an interesting character in the comic, but in the show with a child voice actor, suddenly he becomes way more animated and lively as a presence on screen. And seeing him just kind of be this joyful, eager elementary school kid that wants to become a superhero like his big bro is really funny and exciting and heartwarming in a lot of ways. And maybe for those that don't know kind of his character arc, it might seem very cutesy and trite, but I think that is part of the charm of what they're doing with that character, and I'm looking forward to seeing that evolve throughout the season.
Is he gonna take a turn?
I wouldn't say turn.
Okay. I was like, oh man, he's gonna join the bad guys.
There's just no answer I can say that doesn't feel spoilery. So
right.
It's just one of those. There. He's not a bit character. Enjoy the ride.
Okay. All right.
Like
Sounds
he
good.
is a character.
Nice. I've actually been enjoying the moments we've gotten with Rex. As not so obnoxious, right? Like, I mean, in the past couple of seasons, he's just been like super obnoxious and then just relegated to the side, right? But having his death experience or near death experience, I think has has opened him up a little bit to, okay, like there's more here than just me being obnoxious. And they've revealed, like, I think it was I don't know if it's episode 2 or 3 where he starts talking about, like, he doesn't really have parents, right? His family gave him up, and stuff like that. It's like, oh, like, yeah, you would have some certain defense mechanisms there in place because of, experiences like that, and being raised basically and like by scientists who are just experimenting on you the whole time. But it's nice to see him have some growth, right? Like, I think a show is any story you want to see, like, characters change over time or be changed by the experiences that are happening. Otherwise, the experiences didn't really matter. And so it's cool to see him be different as a result of his experiences in the show. I don't know. Mark is also, I think, trying to grapple with things and see who he is. And obviously he's taken on this, like, mantle of, I'm going to be the Earth's defender in the beginning of the season. So we'll see, like, can he get out of his own way in a bit? And I think obviously that's, like, one of the biggest questions for him, and is he gonna do the right thing when he needs to and make the right plays? Sav, who's standing out to you so far?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the characters
and
obviously
Team
have
Debbie, obviously, always, right? Like,
yeah, naturally. I mean, Debbie's one of the, I really love that her side stories and arcs are like, they feel, at moments, I'm like, man, why are we watching this? And it's just it's nice to see a reprieve. I like how they're doing Debbie's story of her trying to be a regular person in this world, pulling her life together. Even the scene when she was having dinner with that dude, I was like, oh, I didn't think this would be as entertaining as it is, but it's cool to see. And, in episode 3, they talk about how, like, Debbie needs her own life too, right? And that's a whole thing with her and Mark's relationship development, which, by the way, the Mark-Debbie relationship, I love it. The way those two have to consistently be emotionally there for each other and work through stuff and figure out what to do with Oliver and their life. And it is a really good, like, I feel like some shows, parent-child dynamics can feel one-sided, where one is just a parent and they're only a support to the child, which it does tend to how it can go, but I like how this show really
right, Wes?
but I like that the show leans into,
I
like,
really don't like it when parents are parenting their kids.
No, I'm saying is that
kids aren't parenting the parents back.
You know what I mean? Normally, parents are just supporting the kids, but in the context of this show, like, they very much are both each other's emotional rock. And there's lots of scenes throughout really the whole series that have done a great job of driving that home, where even just a scene of those two chatting at night washing dishes is just very, like, this is really nice. And with all the other crap in this show, it's a nice little pace change.
No one else can relate to how much they were betrayed, right? By Nolan.
Yeah, and the stuff and then having to lie about it, and, like, everything that comes with that, and, like, it's a cool dynamic, and I like that they fleshed that out. All that to say, Cecil's been my favorite by a long shot. Cecil's always been one of my favorite characters in the series because he's, in my opinion, like, less cruel than Amanda Waller, but less idealistic than Nick Fury, and feels like a realistic combination of how those two characters would work in the real world, where he's not evil, but he'll do what it takes. And again, we're talking about pacing changes, Wes. In episode 2, we get Cecil's backstory. We get everything about Cecil, why what happened, why he's the way it is, why his face is like that, everything, right? You understand his entire psychology. Comic, you don't get that until way later, like damn near the tail end of the series. You don't get this Cecil backstory. They moved it up way further, and it was amazing because when Mark and Cecil have their really huge falling out, which, by the way, that's really my favorite part of the season so far, and how they betrayed it, but, like, you really understand where both of them are coming from. Like, you get why Cecil's the way it is, why he's so dogmatic about stuff, why he's so bigger picture, and how he actually wasn't always that way. And it's a cool analog to how he's kind of similar to how Mark used, young Cecil's actually very similar to young Mark, but Cecil had to.
How can you explain that then? Like, I actually felt like they're still missing that, as, like, what are the pieces that took Cecil from, where he was in the beginning of that flashback to the end and present day, where he's like, nah, like, by any means necessary.
Because Cecil's whole thing in the start, right, when he was an agent,
he read Malcolm X's autobiography.
That too, in prison. Yeah, he read it in prison.
Radicalized him.
No, because remember, his whole thing in the beginning of the series is that he had a very black and white look of morality. I don't work with criminals. If you're a bad person, You're a criminal, you do this, there is no room for redemption. Your redemption is in death. And he lived by that, right? And then
he kills the
people who ended up his old boss for farm. But the point is that his boss, gave him that that kind of quip of like, you can be the good guy or you can be the guy who saves the world. You can't be both. And that was like a pivotal moment for Cecil. If he tried to be the good guy and then over his experiences realized, yo, man, if you really want to get stuff done, life is more complicated than that. And he
I think
embraced
we're
that
still
to its
missing that
fullest.
though. Like, where does he come in his life to believe that, right? Like, I know he talks about how it took a lot to work in that prison situation to get it in order, but I don't know. I kind of felt like we missed the part where it's like he's actually having to confront where his old ideology doesn't work.
He realized that the world was a complicated place and that there's lots of bloodshed that his boss stopped by employing formerly bad people. Like, I think they drove that point when his life is saved by the people who originally effed up his body in the first place. Granted, he shoots and kills them, but like his time in
so
prison.
He didn't believe in that at that point.
Yeah, but then during his time in prison, the boss even said, this was your rehabilitation. Us putting you into this prison in a situation where you would have to do things you're not comfortable with or violate your moral code in order to, bring things together is like, yo, man, it's not pretty, but this is for the greater good. Hey, you learned that in prison on purpose. We wanted you to learn that. Cool. We need you to do that on a big scale because you're talented. The boss even said, we don't waste talent. He knows that Cecil's smart and has this skill set. He just has to convince him to apply it differently. But
but all that happened off screen, right?
Wes, I'm not doing this with you right now.
Get him in shape. Show him the way.
Point is, I thought we had a great understanding of why Cecil's the way he is, and it manifests even better when the Guardians are arguing back at the headquarters after the aftermath of the Invincible Cecil fallout, where everybody lands in such drastically different places because they all have different interpretations of what Cecil's philosophy is. And like, it's not even a right or wrong necessarily. It's just what's more important to you. You got guys like Samson and Immortal saying, yeah, Cecil was wrong for putting that thing in Mark's head, but Mark proved him right by running up in the Pentagon, acting crazy, talking shit, and he never gets consequences. Others say, oh, well, we're seen as, expendable. And then others will say, yeah, maybe, but if I'm going to make changes, it has to be from the inside. Others say, F being expendable, I just want to save people. But all of that comes from the whole group being decidedly split on what Cecil's defining philosophy is. Yeah. Okay, yeah, it's for the greater good. Are you okay with being expendable for that greater good? Some say yes, some say no. But I don't think that scene with them arguing would have hit as hard if we didn't have an extended flashback to understand, hey, you ain't got to agree with Cecil, but this is why he's the way it is. Then you can decide whether or not you would still do that if you were in his shoes. But they did a good job of doing the moral quandaries. Is it okay to work with people who have tortured and murdered and done these awful things if they're helping save lives later? I don't know. The U.S. brought in a bunch of Nazi scientists after the war, right? And they were a direct part of a lot of NASA technology developments in the post-World War II days. I don't think that excuses what they did, but like, even in real life, it's not that simple, right? It's really complicated. Awful people sometimes, there's guys who are former cyber criminals who work for the government after because they're consultants and stuff. It's not, this happens in real life, and it's a cool moral quandary.
And this is, for me, kind of what sets Invincible apart from the rest of the comic book landscape, right? Is that they actually dive into these deep questions and fully explore them within their comic book universe, right? Like, this is a real debate about redemption, about reform, about criminal justice, and about like what are you willing to do to to protect the earth in this case, the places to just like protect your city, your family, whatever. Whereas, you talk about Amanda Waller, right, who's sort of like kind of like what Cecil's modeled after, and Nick Fury also. Amanda Waller and Suicide Squad, right? Like, you'd say like, oh yeah, Suicide Squad is like doing the same thing, but you can tell in that IP, in that universe, they kind of just like have the idea of Suicide Squad first, and then throw Amanda Waller into it, and like you don't even know, you don't get any of that of like why she's why she put this team together and like why that's important and wrestling with that question. Like all of that is out the door. They just want like the cool bad guys doing superhero stuff.
And okay with killing them all.
Yeah. Here in Invincible, they're really grappling with it, and I think it just makes everything that much more interesting and richer. And then when things do pop off, they have extra, an extra layer of depth and meaning behind it.
Mm-hmm. Especially there's like a spoiler event in episode 3 that's specifically about that. But like, even in these couple episodes, right, we've already had, at least from what I've watched, multiple instances where Mark talks about like a man, like even after the D.A. Sinclair thing, right? Mark has a whole conversation with Will and Rick saying, yo, should I have killed him? If I had killed him, he wouldn't be working for Cecil, and maybe he wouldn't be able to hurt more people. But then again, it's complicated, right? On one hand, should Mark have killed him? Are you open to just being judge, jury, executioner in the moment if someone's wrong? Do the lives that D.A. Sinclair saved with his reanimation later?
Jury, executioner.
I know, I was waiting on it. But like, if D.A. Sinclair saves lives with his work later, is that a path to redemption? Is that better? Is it okay that the future reanimation, they say the new ones are made from donated corpses, so he's no longer just kidnapping innocent people? It's complicated. I don't know. There's no like right off the bat right answer, but the show doesn't spoon feed you how you're supposed to feel. And they don't spoon feed you and they don't even try and like have all the other characters feel the same way to kind of nudge you towards it. Everybody feels differently about this shit, including characters you like who are just on opposite sides or different parts of the fence. And that's a really cool thing to play out. I think generally comics have a harder time doing that. Like even like Captain America Civil War, I like that movie. It was not nearly as good as portraying the gray area of extrajudicial killings and redemption and letting folks get a second chance. Like there's levels to this. There's levels to this type.
They're more interested in the superhero fight.
Yeah, and the fight's cool, but for me,
which is great.
Yeah, it was dope. But to me, it was like all that fall. I was like, it was the emotional part of like, dude, the world needs y'all, and like shit is ugly, and there's a Viltrumite invasion and stuff, and oh my god, this is. But I understand being like, yo, man, F Cecil. Like one dude was like straight up bulletproof, say, yo, I can't work with somebody I don't trust. I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
I don't agree with you in this moment, but like I get it. But that's cool. I'm glad I walked away, and like me and Tony watched it. I'm glad we both walked away and were like, we felt differently about who was right, who was wrong, and how that should have played out. And I'm like, yo, that's good writing.
Yeah, Mark is stuck in this quandary, right? He does have this like rule in his head that like you shouldn't kill, but he's killed plenty of people and plenty of like other species. I don't know.
So I don't think Angstrom Levy.
Yeah, I think Mark's never killed anybody.
No.
I
mean, he killed the reanimin, like no problem.
Wes, I want you to think about the statement you just said.
Are they alive?
That's
a whole different quandary.
He killed the reanimin. Those things are literally puppet corpses.
He killed a lot of multi-Pauls. Does that count as killing?
No, because Paul's still alive, and he also warned Paul because he was trying to kill his friend. Yes, believe it or not, Mark does not have a body count. Outside of Angstrom, Mark does not have a body count. The dude really do not be trying to kill. Like, he's for real about that.
I think that Angstrom Levy thing is the key example over here, right? And especially with like when Mark says he defends that action. He's like, it was different, like he was trying to attack my mom and stuff. Like I had to kill him.
He said it was an accident.
Him trying to make that defensive
there you
distinction.
Go. Yeah, he's like, there you go.
Self-defense.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's tricky though, right? Because on one hand, Mark did he? What?
Did he?
Like, was it actually self-defense? Like if you go back and watch that
it wasn't, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think, it was like self-defense is open to interpretation, but the way I saw it is that Mark even said when he beat him like to death, he said, oh, I thought you were tougher. Which, again, that's the tricky part of being like super strong, right? You got to pull your punches because you don't know how durable the person you punch. Which, funny enough, in one of the episodes, I don't know if it's episode 3, no, the multi-Paul episode, throughout that fight, Invincible's actively trying to gauge how strong his opponent is to know, oh, these regular dudes? Oh, okay, they are. And then he adjusts accordingly. Like, I actually do like that the show kind of really said, hey, yo, it's hard to pull your punches consistently. Like, that's not having to pull back enough to hurt, not enough to kill, all that. But I interpret the Angstrom Levy thing as not him killing him in cold blood. He wanted to beat his ass, thought he was tougher, and then realized, oh, you weren't as tough as you hyped. Because he hyped himself up as saying, I'm way tougher now with my augmentations. And turns out them augmentations, they mean shit when you fight in a Viltrumite. So, but that's what makes it complicated. There's a self-defense element. There's a he lost his cool element. I wouldn't say he killed him in cold blood, but also like, Mark, you did kind of kill a dude. It's complicated.
Yeah, like you had,
but he wouldn't just do it.
Disabled him, and then you went further. Right?
You crossed your own line. You're defending it.
But it was
where is the line actually, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the question here.
And then what's the difference between
gotta figure it
accidentally
out.
killing someone versus like, nah, man, F this dude, I'm going for the kill. There is no, oh, my bad. Like, it's all that like matters though. But again, the fact that we're even having this conversation is a testament of the stuff you see isn't like, we all have different interpretations of how intentional Mark's ass whooping of Angstrom Levy was. I think it leans more accident. You think it leans more on purpose, but like that opens up a really fun conversation of when do you kill? When do you not?
Yeah.
Like, especially when you have the kind of power Mark does where he can absolutely be strong enough to make that call for other people, which is what makes him so scary, right? Is that he's willful and hard-headed and strong enough to where he's not kept in check by being physically weak like the rest of the world.
Yeah. All right. So, well, let's get there then. So Mark walks into, Cecil's office or, Cecil's area and starts railing on him for using Darkwing, for using the Reaniman, for working with DA Sinclair, who obviously were, antagonists in previous seasons, and starts really berating Cecil. And I don't know if this was my interpretation of how it went down, but, Cecil walks him into the White Room and is like, these guys are here for my protection from you, right? And that was kind of one of the big lines, was just like, I need protection from you. And I don't know, I didn't get the sense that like Mark was trying to physically do anything to him. Like maybe Mark was mad at him, but I didn't get the sense that like that to me seemed like an escalation that didn't necessarily need to happen. I mean, I wasn't in that situation.
Mark was crashing out so hard. That man had just gotten saved. Look, the Reaniman
didn't he go straight from the underworld to the Pentagon?
Yes.
And he flew through the floor.
Yes. They said, the rest of the heroes said, hold on, these things just saved us. Let's get to the bottom of this after. Mark said, I'm getting to the bottom of it now, and left and went straight to the Pentagon, straight into Cecil's office, talking mad shit. And frankly, was low-key giving ultimatum. Like literally, Cecil said like 5 times, Mark, go home. Mark, go home. Mark, go home. Hey, you think people know what's going on here? Go home. He threatened to blow the whistle on him. He's like, Mark. He might have said, Mark, go home like 5 different times. I was keeping track.
Yeah, but like, are you gonna let someone tell you go home when you want to like talk about it? You know what I'm saying? Like, you want to find out like what the fuck is going on.
They did talk about it. He told them what was going on. He said, yo, people who do bad things, we try to rehabilitate them, make them fight for the greater good.
Yeah.
We did all this programming and psychological stuff with the both of them. They're saving lives. He gave Invincible really
but Mark is saying like that's not not good enough,
but
right?
there's a difference between getting an explanation and you not liking the explanation. It's not like Cecil say, oh, I'm not entitled to tell you what's up. He told them everything that was up. Mark just said, cool. Like Mark basically came in there saying, hey, you need to shut this down and you don't have any other option. I'm like, dude, that's an ultimatum, pimp. Like, you can't, like, that's an ultimatum. A dude run up, like, if I run up in Brian's crib and start saying, hey, Brian, I don't like how you doing stuff. Tell me why. Brian tells me why, and I say, cool. I still don't like it. You need to shut that shit down. Brian, how are you going to interpret that?
Are you puffing your chest out?
Yes, I'm mad. I'm raising I'm mad. Look, I'm standing up. I'm raising my voice. I'm animated. I'm like, nah, I'm in your house. I pulled up at your house. Telling you,
Savon's
I don't like
also twice my size.
My point,
so
yes,
and also intimidating.
And also, I can like destroy you with like a flick of the finger.
Yeah,
like nah, man. I think Mark, that was what made that scene so good.
So you felt like Cecil should have been threatened in that moment because Cecil's always been so like cool under the collar. Like
he was cool then. He knew Mark was gonna crash out because he didn't like the. Mark was not about to back down over the DA Sinclair thing, and the show made it clear that he wasn't because they even talked about Rick still having heart pains and stuff from the thing. Like that was them planting that seed of the people Sinclair hurt, that hasn't gone away. There's still after effects later. So then again, you as the viewer can kind of decide yourself, is if even if Sinclair's doing his work, we have a character close to our main protagonist who is a pure victim, right? Like he almost killed his best friend and the best friend's like boo, right? That's a pretty legitimate beef.
Yeah. So like if I'm summarizing your side so far, or like your point so far, it's like Mark came in too reckless and therefore Cecil's reaction was like fairly understandable around, hey, like I'm gonna go ahead and like escalate this to
if the most
you gotta know your place, Mark, right?
If the most powerful being on the planet comes into my office making ultimatums and not being accepting of the answer I've given them, and they're not showing any signs of backing down, even though Cecil said many times, giving him warnings of just let it go, and he doesn't. Like at a certain point, that's a threat at that point, especially when one clearly has the physical strength advantage over the other. Like Mark there's no one on earth who Mark couldn't just beat the crap out of if he really put his mind to it. That's why he's so scary.
But he wasn't going there.
You need to rewatch it. No, I think you need to rewatch that scene, player. Like, I don't see how anybody could watch that scene and not think, hey, yo, Mark is being very antagonistic and escalating this. Like, if I was, Wes, you're a teacher. If a student was doing what Mark was doing, you would send him out like, hey, Pim, you got to get up out of here.
Wes, I'll take your side for a second. So we as the viewing audience have come to like really appreciate and care and root for Mark, right? So if we're on his side, we're thinking, oh yeah, Mark would never do anything that awful. He wouldn't lose his cool. You know, he, of course, we feel what he's feeling, right? Which is that like a moral boundary has been crossed and needs to be rectified, and he's the hero, and the hero is always right. And so we're looking at Mark thinking like, oh no, he's just trying to sort this out and talk some sense into Cecil. And then so him being pulled into the White Room, and then Cecil admitting like, oh, now you're surrounded by Reanimen. For people who are rooting for Mark, feels like suddenly a threat has been made in a situation that doesn't call for it. Is that what you're thinking, Wes?
Yeah. I mean, and like that's how I read that, right? Like Cecil just walks into the White Room and just like,
well, he not just walks in. Mark was literally not going home. He said leave, and Mark refused to leave.
Yeah, but Mark wasn't putting hands on him or like trying to destroy like
what did Mark want? What did Mark want out of that? Mark wanted him to. In fact, I remember now. He specifically said, "I'm not leaving until D.A. Sinclair and Darkwing are in prison." That was what Mark said. Like that was his words. Go back, rewatch the episode. Again, I'm not telling you how to decide morality wise, but you can then decide intentions wise. He went there. His goal was, these two people are evil. I've seen it firsthand. We should not be working with them. They need to be in prison. Cecil, why? Cecil gave him the why. He said, cool, I don't care about your why. They need to be in prison. And clearly, and he, after being told not to go home, he wouldn't. He didn't. That puts you in a tricky place of like, clearly in my mind, I see that as an ultimatum for Mark. Keep in mind, I still agree with Mark. I still rock with him. He's still like who I'm rooting for, but I can also acknowledge, Pimp, that was the worst way of going about it. But that's what makes the show good, because I think that's Mark's biggest character flaw. For all the shit that Cecil was talking to Mark, he said, you're an arrogant, hypocritical shit. And it's like, yo, he was kind of right about that. Like, you are very headstrong and decisive. Mark does kind of have a my way or the highway approach to his morality, but I think that's a good character flaw, right? It's what makes him so righteous and so good, but it also means that he can do really, really dumb shit too. But but I think that's a part of his character development, right? Like, like I see this as a Mark had the right intentions, went about it in the worst way, and ultimately made things worse. But this will be a part of, I think, his hero's journey.
But that wasn't the worst way. I mean, the worst way would have been coming in and started like breaking shit and breaking people. Yeah. Right, that's the worst way.
Well, but we know.
I don't necessarily think that Mark was like going way over the top and being really out of hand about everything.
What was Mark going to do? Like,
it's kind of threatening. But here's for me what the key thing is for Cecil, and why I don't think what Cecil did was bad either, is because Cecil, we already know, keeps everybody on a tight leash. He's in control of every situation. And part of that is because he's thought of all the contingencies. He already understands what the worst can happen is, and he knows that Mark here is the son of a Viltrumite. He himself is a Viltrumite. These guys are dangerous, powerful, and have the ability to destroy planet Earth. And we know that his father has already tried. We know that Mark shares some of that from his father, some of that behavior, and that Mark himself is still a kid. He's still
like 18. He's like 18, 19 years old.
He's a teenager.
Like I said, he's 19. He's 19 years old.
And now I, as the person who feels responsible for Earth's safety, needs to rein this in and assert some sort of authority in this situation. And the only way that I can really assert authority is by showing I have some sort of upper hand in this, right? And that's when, he's showing the white room, and look what I got in the white room, enough toys to take you out.
It's interesting though, right? Because that just pisses him off more.
Well, I mean, like, you can debate all you want about the best way to handle an argument, but
he specifically uses the reanimin, which are clearly like a trigger for Mark.
Yeah, because he's trying to rein in the attack dog, right? Like that's all he's trying to do, and I understand from Cecil's perspective because they have carefully crafted what kind of character this person is that, like, that's the tack that Cecil is going to take. Cecil,
and we saw what happened when he didn't. We got Omni-Man,
Cecil
right?
only knows that, right? He is cold and calculated. He only knows that, right? Like, he's not a friendly person. He's not anybody's friend. People don't love him and adore him, but he's the person that keeps everyone safe because he is so cold and calculated.
He even said, "Don't you think people don't know what we do here?" I think people, one of those, like, people know Cecil's a jerk. He's not likable, but people respect him because he gets his job done. And like that. But again, that's what makes this show good. By any means, is it the morally great? Is it, basically it's
not what Wesley would do.
Basically it's like, do you subscribe to what clearly is Cecil's mantra, which I think that's what really just kind of decides how characters in the audience feel. Do you believe that you have to choose between being the good guy and the person who saves the planet? Like, in his mind, they are mutually exclusive. You cannot be both.
Yeah.
Where you fall on that fence says a lot about how you feel about a lot of these things. But again, it's a show doing morality and complicated situations very well. Like, I love that the older Guardians were like, man, Invincible was being an idiot. And the younger ones were like, yo, man, you tripping. Like, that's how people really feel about this stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Even us right now are just all drastically. I see it as like, you tripping, played a long game. You see it as there was no threats in the first place. Some see it as you can't be that strong talking crazy. It's fun because there's no right answer.
Yeah. I think where you really get the like dichotomy of the gray area is the implant in Mark's head.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, on one hand, I mean, it's like super obvious, right? On one hand, it's like, I get why Cecil wants it, because it's like, if Mark goes red Superman on us, right, or dark Superman on us, then we got to have something. And like, this is one of our options, like, you have a kryptonite in your back pocket, and the government always did that with Superman too, right? They always had some kind of kryptonite on hand. Batman always had kryptonite on hand, even though they're supposed to be teammates. But on the other hand, it's like, what an invasion of like trust and personal like autonomy to have that like situation, right? Or to have that like implant done without your knowledge.
Yeah. And in Cecil's mind, if it saves the Earth,
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And in Cecil's mind, if that helps make the Earth safer and protects it, he's like, yo, he'll make that call 100 times out of 100.
Yeah. And like, there's debate. What if somebody else got a hold of this and like disabled Invincible while he was trying to do the right thing and defend the Earth, so like, this could be used against you too. But yeah, I mean, the idea of having this
problem, right?
Having this failsafe is like really interesting, right? Because it is like bigger picture. It's like, oh yeah, it makes sense why you'd have a failsafe against Mark, and the fact that it's like an internal implant, I think really like bothers Mark, and would bother anybody, right? Like,
that's pretty reasonable. That's a pretty reasonable. Like, yo, I don't rock with that at all. That's pretty.
You put a microchip in me.
Yeah. But also, you get why, because like, hey,
we got the COVID vaccine people.
Yeah,
like, this is.
But also, they gave your boy Omni-Man a long leash, and we see how it played out. So like, there's really an argument of like, even if you don't agree, you get where it come from. Like, if that implant could stop another Omni-Man event where he destroyed all those cities and killed all those people.
Yep.
Most people would say, "Oh, I'll make that. I'll make that I'll make that sacrifice in a heartbeat. And let's just hope that we don't need to use it." And then again, surprise, surprise, Mark kind of like proved it's like they're both right and wrong. Of like, Cecil, you was wrong for putting that in that boy's head, but also you were right in that. You kind of proved this point of why you needed it. Mark, he shouldn't have put that in your head, but like, Mark, you proven why they did it in the first place. There's both of their best traits are also their downfall. Mark's stubbornness is what makes him so morally righteous, but that can be used against him and play badly. Yeah. Cecil's paranoid and has everything thought of, but sometimes it's kind of like Batman, where your paranoia can be your own downfall of like,
you can't build a team.
You can't work with people.
Yeah, you accounted for everything, but like sometimes your inherent lack of trust can create its own problems.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, if you trusted him,
100%.
you would have been. But yeah, man, you in a job where you can't trust people. So like, if I was Cecil, I wouldn't just roll the dice on trust. I'm like, hey, Savon, implanted in this superhuman who could destroy the earth, or trust them. Like, oh, F that, implanted every time, pushing that button every time. What?
I'm trusting Mark to make the right decision.
Especially if you're from Chicago,
Stakes are
where
too high.
especially if you're from Chicago, where him and his dad destroyed the whole damn city. I'm like, yeah, pimp. Sorry, big dog. We need a contingency.
All right.
But also keep watching Invincible because I don't want to spoil nothing.
Yeah, what do the listeners think? Do they think Cecil needed to A, put the chip in his head, which is like I think the biggest invasion, and then B, did he need to use it once it was there? I don't think he needed to use it, but maybe. I don't know. All
Mark
right.
out of control. Mark thinks he's strong. Nobody can tell him what to do.
Oh no, what happened to our question? That was the cool. Oh, okay. So there's a lot of like fun characters that we've seen in the past, and then we got to see what was it? Tongue tie? What was the bank robber's name in the third episode?
The Tether Terror.
Tether Terror. He has a ball of like it's almost like a scarf.
Tether Tyrant. There we go.
Okay, and he can like use it like a chameleon uses his tongue and just like grab things out of the air. And he's his lover or partner is a guy that turns into like lava and can like pour lava on people. So you get some kind of interesting like gimmicky characters. Is there what would be your invincible ability if they threw you into the invincible world? Because I think that one is nuts. The one he puts on a vest and it's just like that doesn't seem like that would be doing a whole lot, but maybe I don't know. Brian, are you like the are you the what's the like the saute pan, the frying pan man? Like from your zombie answer days?
No. That's not gonna get me into the
Guardians. It's a magically enchanted frying pan, like Thor's hammer, but a frying pan.
He like gongs it and everybody goes to sleep or something. I don't know.
Probably the real answer is probably the spleen from Mystery Men. If you remember Paul Rubens, Pee Wee Herman.
Do not tell us.
In the movie Mystery Men, which is like knockoff superheroes with Ben Stiller. Great movie. You should look it up. Hank Azaria's in it. But the spleen is a guy who just has really bad gas. just like the most noxious farts of all time.
Oh, hell yeah.
Just 100% cloud kill in his vicinity. That's probably more true to life.
Was that a D&D reference?
Yes, it was. I can only think in D&D.
Oh, my boy. I was like, is that cloud kill? I'm like, I know that
once I not cloud kill, that changed things. But maybe a more accurate depiction of something that maybe I do have is to be devastatingly true and real about other people, and like if I just say what everyone's thinking in their minds, but don't dare to say it out loud. If I say it,
okay, Kanye.
So
that's the thing that devastates everybody in my area and knocks them out. Like,
gotcha. You're psychologically gonna just demoralize people.
I could go spleen from the butthole, or I could do it from the mouth.
Nice.
Either one. Take your poison.
So you're just gonna inflict verbal abuse on everybody.
Like, he knows
you're really wearing that to the party.
Oh, so you're gonna be like a passive aggressive aunt.
Devastating, man. Devastating.
That's your power business. Passive aggressive aunt. Just that's what you're wearing.
How many boyfriends is that now?
Dang, yeah. Oh, you look like you've gained a little weight.
Yeah, but now he gotta say it in the nice voice.
But you carry it. But you carry it so well. You carry it so well.
We know resolutions don't last till then.
Boy, if you had a power like that, you'd have an arch nemesis. You would have
several arch nemesis.
Yeah, you jazz beat.
I don't know what power it had. Brian, what power would I have in the? I feel like it'd be absurd in the Invincible universe, Invincibleverse.
Maybe you'd be like Maybe you'd be. This might sound weird. You'd be like the grower. like people would be kind of unfazed when you show up for a fight, and they're like, oh, who's this like kind of like short Asian guy, whatever. Like I thought he was just the furniture, and then you'd hit the magic word and just like and
Nice.
just
I'd
grow.
Hulk out. Yeah.
You'd Hulk out. You'll Hulk out, and throw an angry Asian man fit. Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I could see Wes as being like a Hulk type thing of just him being very mild mannered, and I want to have it be like you turn into the Hulk, except you turn into a Hulk and you're super destructive, but also you suddenly have like perfect memory, clarity, like the same way Banner goes from being really really smart to just being like an idiot rage monster. I want you to
It'd be in
just
reverse.
no, because you're not an idiot, but you would go from being a much more reasonable with perfect memory and clarity. So you're just in a situation robbing the bank. What bank is this? Wait, who are the villains? And then whatever your trigger is, it kicks in, and suddenly you're strong.
Now I know.
You have perfect memory and clarity. Your brain power is just like a bazillion percent. It's just like now your brain's like a supercomputer calculating everything. And then after it's all over, you go back to just mild mannered Wes.
No, but the irony would be that when you're in like Hulk mode and you have super clarity, you actually make very logical decisions. And so because of that, you would not rob the bank.
Or just not use it, or be super strong,
or
be super strong, but not even use the super strength to just turn into like a Hulk monster nerd and then just be a nerd.
Yeah, refuse to do any like physical things.
Something where a mild-mannered, middle-aged Asian father and history teacher just turns into some kind of like just left field badass thing.
I did Hulk out on one of my classes the other day. This is like yesterday actually. They were not with it in the beginning of class, and they were like not paying attention and stuff. And like I had gotten them going. I gotten several like moments and then reminders, and we had done the positive narration thing, and they were still not with it. And I was like, yo, I was like, y'all need to wake up because this is not acceptable. And they were like, well, I was like, yeah, like don't make me do this. God damn it. Like, fuck.
Did you slam anything down on the desk for emphasis?
No, I yelled. I don't usually turn it up to 11. I was like, they need a wake up call.
Yeah, because you can't overdo it. If you overdo it, it loses its effectiveness. And also, I ain't about to be at work yelling. You got me effed up.
Oh, I mean, I don't think I've yelled at them at all this year. So that was the first time probably that I broke it out, just to
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
just
y'all gotta know. Yeah, you
gotta
gotta know. Like, there's a standard in here.
It's almost like what Cecil was doing. Huh? Reminds him who's in charge, who's boss. Man,
you gotta take him to the white room.
Yeah, well, I took him to the white room. Said, "Why are we in here for y'all protection? Because y'all about to have Mr. Nakamura about to crash out in this joint."
Yeah. So that's what happened yesterday, third period. I was like, no, you need to know this is not okay. Mm-hmm. You aren't. It's not like you've done anything bad, but you ain't done anything right yet. So let's get this shit together.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to know that it was not going to fly. They're also like really struggling. They're like behind on all their like lessons and stuff. So, you gotta get them going. So, anyways, all right, that's where we're at. Savon, you got a power that you would use. I feel like you would want to like amp up your already like supercomputer memory, and like you'd want to be the guy just like plotting all the shit and like having all
the guy in a chair.
Yeah, you go straight Shikamaru.
Yeah, if I could, oh man, look, I mean, he was always my favorite. I was like, man, Shikamaru really a G. My son do not want to be here.
Who's that?
Character from Naruto.
Okay.
His whole bit was that he was probably the smartest character in the show, and then also the laziest character in the show. Like he would use his brain to win fights moments because he's like, all right, are we done? Cool. I just want to like chill and just like vibe out, and that'll be his motivation to try hard.
Maybe you would be like the time turner though, like because you like to do New Game Plus. You would win a fight, and then you'd like dial it back and try to win the fight a completely different way just to see if you could. I feel like that would be you just like fucking having fun.
I would want one of those maybe like, if it was something more serious, one of those like turn back time 5-second type powers where
Prince of Persia.
You're basically just like save scumming, but real life you're just save scumming all your interactions. Actually, that's what I want my power to be. I want to be the save scummer.
Nice.
You should watch the end of Arcane season 2. If that's the case.
Is there like save scum type energy?
Yes,
but
this dude tries. He can only go back like 10 seconds.
Yeah, I want something like that where I don't know exactly to what extent, but I want to like have a save scum power. Maybe I can only save scum once a day, and I'm just using that data. Something, or I want something
didn't go right.
Yeah.
Redo.
Or I want like a goofy
or
power.
to experience it over and over.
No, God, not Groundhog Day. That'd be a curse over a power. Or I want a power where like I fight people, but I only fight dirty. So like tripping people, pocket sand, crotch shots, fake surrenders, misdirections. Like I want to be like one of those troll heroes that doesn't seem like they're gonna win, and it's like, hey, dude, I'm not even here to stop you, and then that's some kind of misdirect of like, hey, no, actually, look, I'll help you out, and then pow, crotch punch,
flicking people.
That's a viable strategy in Marvel Snap.
Like I said, pocket sand. I just want to pocket sand. Something,
yeah,
but honestly,
cards.
the save scummer is a cool power. I kind of like that. I am the save scummer. I've never seen you before, and you never will.
I like the idea of you in a fight and just throwing sand in their eyes, and then you finally meet your match in a villain who's blind and doesn't have wears a mask over their eyes.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, well, I'm all out, yo.
Yeah, what was Sandman doing this whole time? Just like trying to make giant fists and like make himself giant. He should just throw sand in people's eyes.
Well, Spider-Man got the mask.
True.
So that was like Spider-Man was ready for that, but everybody else, absolutely.
He could make it really fine sand, so it's like dust. You know. All right, I think that'll do it. Invincible season 3 dropping on Amazon. Hopefully you liked it. Let us know though. Are you on Team Cecil? Are you on Mark's side? Are you on neither side? Who handled themselves worst in that interaction? Because they both really fumbled the bag. Really?
That was just one. That was some real like Draymond. That's like not even Draymond Jordan fool because that was one sided. But like, man, that was just like such a mutual crash out of like, dude, y'all are.
Pat Riley, Jimmy Butler?
Yeah, it was like, thank you. Yes, Pat Riley, Jimmy Butler. I was like, dude, we are all worse off for this right now. Look, the rest of the team sitting there like watching two parents argue just. Stop. I don't like it when you guys argue. Like, tough because they arguing.
All right, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, we're going to talk about that on our next show, so if you haven't seen it yet, make sure you check it out on Disney Plus. That way you're prepared for all the goodness of a very different kind of animated series showing up in our Disney Plus feed. Friends, we're out of here. Lakers, Luka magic. Let's see it happen. Friends, we're out of here. Bye.